Hello and welcome to another episode of Marty's Matchbox Makeovers. Today I am doing a makeover on a rather unusual Matchbox vehicle. It is from the Adventure 2000 series, which was first launched back in 1977. A slightly different look to this car than what you'd expect. If you've been watching my channel, I generally concentrate on the old 1 to 75 models. It's supposed to have some wings, and it's the completely wrong colour. And there's some machine guns missing off the front, or laser beams, cannons, and laser cannons missing off the front. So it's all a little bit odd. These Matchbox models came out in kits, sometimes with like 3 grey, bluey grey plastic spacemen or combatants to accompany these futuristic, I guess they're war machines. But this one I picked up, if you're a regular viewer you may remember, I went to the Ballarat collectables and antiques indoor market, and I was looking for some Matchbox cars, and the pickings were rather slim, and I basically bought this one out of desperation because I didn't want to go home empty-handed, and I actually didn't know what I was going to do with it. So now I'm having a good look at it. Now I've got it home and I'm thinking, why did I waste me money on this rubbish? But somebody loved it, and they loved it to death. Look at this. They even went to the effort of painting it red, because red cars are always faster than any other colour. It's got an interesting sort of DeLorean gull-wing doors there. Very futuristic for the day. Underneath there's 6 wheels. A double axle on the back, which I'm not going to separate. They're kind of super fast wheels too. And that hole, that keyhole slot in the bottom, I guess was to hold it in the box when it was on display. Because these were sold with like boxes with clear plastic on them, so you could see the model before buying. And as I said, some of them came out individually or in kits, kits of 3 vehicles. I do have another one here that somebody kindly donated many years ago. There you can see the same decals on the side of this green model here, which is called the Missile Launcher. What is it? K2002? Battle Kings. So these vehicles were repurposed when the Adventure 2000 series came out, and they were sort of sold alongside them, almost as though Matchbox were planning it ahead of time. Here you can see a page from the 1980s catalogue where Matchbox were intending to bring out the Adventure 2000 series in this metallic blue colour, but to my knowledge they never did. Here you can see the similar colour underneath the red paint is the original colour that I'm going to have to try and match. It's a difficult colour to match that green. This other model here, the Battle King, has a lot of accessories here. It's got the rotating radar on the roof and firing missiles. Now, if you haven't seen this episode, have a watch. I 3D printed those missiles from a pattern I downloaded offline, because as always the missiles are the first part to go missing. So this model was in mint condition except for the missiles. Anyway, back to the new model for today's makeover. 1 rivet post holding the base on. So a real quick separation. Just drilled out the bare minimum there. Like to have a little bit of resistance when I put it back on. So pry it off with the flat bladed screwdriver like normal. And this one has a tongue at the back, and you have to push the body back off of the chassis to disconnect it. And then inside all the bits fall out. You've got this unusual chrome plated interior. Never seen anything like it. And it's got this mechanism for deploying the non-existent wings, which I guess were flicked out by a spring of some description. And it looks like those are the pivot points in the base there where they would have attached. This front axle is slightly bent, so I'm going to have to straighten that. And I'm quite surprised it sort of sits in there like magic. There's nothing really holding it in other than the base. I'm surprised it's not looser than it was. I'm just seeing how hard it is to put back together. That's good. I do like it when they snap back together. Anyway, I'm checking that hole and thinking, is it worn? But no, I don't think it is. So I was going to have to try and build it up somehow if I thought that was going to slip out, that very thin axle. Anyway, there's a spring on the back here, and I thought, oh, it's got suspension, but it hasn't. It's not for the suspension, it's for this wing deployment activation switch, which is disguised as an air intake for the turbo engine, or whatever engine it had. There's the gull wing doors. Fortunately, the retention, the way they've retained them in position with these little bent tabs is very weak. It's a weak point on the model, and one of those tabs is missing, so the gull wing is loose. It won't come out, but it does open on an awkward angle. Anyway, nice colour amber tinted windscreen. I'm going to take that out and clean it. I have to take it out regardless, even if it was in mint condition, because I'm going to paint this, and it's easier just to remove it than to mask it up and paint around it. There you go. So into the paint stripper it goes. Got to get rid of this horrible red paint. It doesn't belong there, and it doesn't look original. I really am anxious about this model because I'm thinking, what am I going to do about the wings? I looked online, of course, nobody's selling them. I mean, who would? So I'm going to have to make them from scratch somehow. Anyway, that paint stripper did a marvellous job as normal. Look at that. It's not a bad casting, although very limited detail. Now, I've downloaded some images offline so I can get an idea of where I'm heading. And I'm looking at the wings, and somehow I'm going to use these images to try and make some wings for this model. I've also noticed, you know, the cannons on the front are missing. So if anyone's got a set, don't pull your model apart for me, but if you've got a set loose in the bottom of the toy box, I'd like them to complete my model. Anyway, here's the wing design that I came up with the measurements, and I'm going to cut it out of a piece of a small sheet of plastic card that I'd actually forgotten that I had. So I'm optimistic, although I'm a little bit nervous about cutting this out because I haven't got a lot of the card, and I'm thinking it's quite difficult to cut, and if I stuff it up, it's going to take forever to make these. So I'll make up a cardboard template to begin with, using the dimensions on the plan. This is how they are locked into place by that red release button there. There's a spring that pushes the release button up, and as you can see, there's two little horns on the bottom of the release button that engage in those rectangular cutouts on the wing. Here's another picture. I'm looking at them. They're not parallel, they're slightly tapered, the wings, so I just fine-tune that. Anyway, it's very difficult to cut a circular hole in a piece of card or even a piece of plastic card, especially when it's 4mm in diameter. So luckily I've got these punches left over from, I don't know when, I haven't used them for years, but they're still sharp and they still do the job. So that's how I cut that out for my test piece. So this is maybe the third one that I've done. Not the model, this wing section, the third one I've designed and cut out, and I'm making slight changes on every one. So I've made the hole at the end rectangular, and I've got in my mind I'm going to use the collar off of a pop rivet to hold the wing in those holes in the base and act as a pivot point and a retention device at the same time. Here I think are the original pins that the wings would have rotated around. Those pins, I think those are the hinge points, and they're snapped off. Some kid didn't like the wings. He must have reefed them out to break those pieces off. Wouldn't have been easy, and I don't think it's going to be an easy thing to fix either. Here I am looking at it thinking, how wide do these have to be so they sit inside the body of the vehicle? You know, I don't want them sticking out on the edges. I tell you, this took me ages. I did a white plastic one, and then I realized there was no method of deploying it. I'm going to have to attach a spring of some description. So I've modified it with a little tab on the end to attach a spring to it to try and I'm hoping that it's going to pull that end inboard, and the tip of the wings will rotate outboard. That's the plan. The spring barely works, and near the end of the video I actually bend it up slightly to give it a little bit more travel upwards to lock the wings into position in their stowed position. There I've got a small 4mm drill, I guess, and I'm just holding it in there whilst I've assembled the body pieces together, just to see how it's going to work, how much clearance I have inside, and how that retention button works. Now the original wings, if you recall looking at that picture I downloaded off the internet, were red. I've only got white plastic, so I'm going to paint them red with just a common old garden spray can of red paint. I'm holding the parts by the point where I'm going to attach the spring, and that's going to be inside the model, hidden, so it won't matter if that bit is not red. It will never be seen. I got my trusty magnet sitting in the spray booth there, so I can stand these things up as soon as I've painted them. That one got a bit of a lump on it, or an eyelash. I can't remember what it was, but I had to take it off and then try and smother it and smooth out the paint again. I'm sure it'll be right. Now these gullwing doors are another thing that I'm dreading. I've got to try and make a little tab like that. I can't do it. I lack the tools and ingenuity to do it. So my plan is to just cut a little piece off of a model, off of an old roof of a model actually, that I was turning into a convertible, and try and weld it on there to try and hold that pin in without actually locking the door open, or in fact closed, depending on where it is when I drop a little bit of muggy weld on there. This is so many things that can go wrong here, and as always they do. I'm holding it there, the tab, with a small bulldog clip, which should also help as a heat sink, so that the part doesn't melt. Put a little bit of the muggy weld flux in there, and I'm hoping just to drop a tiny little teardrop sized dollop of muggy weld. But as usual, it just comes out like a big lump of stuff, and it didn't attach at all. So I'll go again. I have to keep going because I've got no other plan at this moment in time. It looks so awful when I do it. I'm sure somebody could do a much better job. Good news is the piece of metal is there, but bad news is didn't work. Bollocks. I continue on into the dark hours, and the next morning I admire my finished product, which again will not be seen when the model's finished, but it has made the doors functional once again. So that's the main thing. I did do a test fit of the interior to make sure there was no lumps of weld interfering with it. No, I think I've got away with it. These holes on the front, obviously they're going to look silly on when I finish the model. If it looks really, really good, but there's 2 holes in the front. Well, I haven't been able to source the laser cannons that fit on the front there. So I am going to just block them off with some Tamiya putty. And in the future, if I manage to find any, I will always have the option to just drill out those holes and drop it in. That would be a really easy thing to do. But because I want the finished product to look nice, I'm going with the filler. Looking at the interior, crazy little vents and seats where you lie down, but you can't reach the controls because you're lying down unless you're operating those levers with your feet. Not too sure how it works, but it is modern, ultra modern technology for its time. So maybe like in Captain Scarlet, they used to sit in the thing backwards facing the back, which always seemed odd to me. But not with this one, of course. But yeah, I did wonder when I'm looking at it, if you're lying down, one, you could fall asleep on a long trip, but two, it'd be very, very difficult to reach those operating levers at the front of the seat. Anyway, that's just me rambling on again. I use some of the best product I know, although it is quite expensive. It's the Molotov liquid chrome. It is a real treat to use. It goes on beautiful. And look at that. Looks like a brand new interior, doesn't it? I'm happy with that. Now, the child that played with this in 1977-ish painted the activating release button there silver, and I actually thought it was silver until I double checked, and it's red, so I've had to paint that red. The Poly watch, I think I've only had this maybe 5 or 6 weeks. Ordered it online, and this is probably the second time I've used it. Very small tube, but the good news is it's a little bit goes a long way. You just need a tiny little drop, and away you go. And when you look in the light, you can see the swirls there, but they come off with a sort of a makeup pad, you know, a little cotton wool makeup pad. I've got a bunch of those kicking around in the hobby room, so I grab one of those, give it a final buff. So one step at a time, I'm slowly closing the gap of where I am and where I want to be. Still looks, there is some minor scratching on there, but it's quite deep and noticeable. So I end up coating it with some clear coat, and it is disguised really, really well and looks quite good. So this is a view of the body after the undercoat has been put on. Now I've got to try and make up this funny green, which I saw online. Somebody called it avocado green. If you look in the catalogues, not only was there the green ones, but in the 1980s catalogue, there was a set that came out of metallic blue, but I don't think they actually went into production. And I thought this colour green was similar to Mr. Bean's Mini, so I went and rushed out and got Mr. Bean's Mini, and I brought it back in, and I was a bit disappointed. It's nothing like it. So I thought there could have been sort of a funny kind of connection there, but wasn't to be. So I'm going to have to try and use these random paints here that I've got out. I think maybe a bit of yellow, a bit of white. Blend those two greens together to make a sort of a grey green. I take a crazy amount of time trying to get that to match, and I couldn't get there. This is one of the models I've sort of failed. Don't quite know which way to go. I didn't know whether to add blue or some more black or what, but I decided to call it quits after a while because I was consuming too much paint just experimenting with trying to get the right colour. But I think this one is an acceptable colour because after I painted it, I thought it looked absolutely brilliant. Although it's not exactly the same colour as the original version, it's quite close. I'm going to make these decals up. One's got stars and sea on it. Some people think it's the sun, represents the sun and sea, but it looks like a star to me. So I got these images and took some measurements, made some up. Yes. Printed them out on some white backed decal paper, and that was a mistake, but I'll show you that later. And then I spray them with some Tamiya clear coat, and that seals the ink in. Apparently stops it bleeding when you put them in the water. And here's all of the parts ready to go back together. Now, the base, I masked off the rear section and sprayed it with some gloss black, and that turned out pretty good. And then I gave it a quick coat of the varnish. So I've got to put it back together now, and I've got to put my wings in that I've made. So my original plan was to cut down the collar of the is it the mandrel? I'm not too sure. I keep asking that question. I know people comment, and I can never remember what they say it's called. But that bit on a blind rivet, the bit that moves up and down the shaft, take that off, cut it down, and hopefully it's just enough depth for me to push it into the model and maybe glue it in position. Maybe it'll be held by friction, I'm not sure yet. It is quite a tight fit. So first time round, I put the base on a block of wood with a piece of cardboard protecting it, and I struck the head of the rivet, a couple of light taps with small hammer, and they seated quite well, and they didn't move, but the wings did. And then for the second time, since I bought my set of springs, I got them out again. The last time was the last video, and now coincidentally this video needed another one, so I hadn't even had time to take them back into my shed. So there they were. So I grabbed one out, a longish one, shortened it, attached it to the wings, and I'm optimistic that it's going to work. So this is the first time now that I'm attempting to put the base on with the wings in place. And by my calculations, it should all go together, but my calculations are wrong, because there is basically virtually no clearance between the top of the hinge point of the wing and the underside of the body. So I had to come up with another idea. I had this set of random sorted screws from a television bracket kit that I bought a while ago, and there's a couple of screws in here that are just the right diameter, and they fit in those original holes in the base, and they actually sort of cut their own thread. If I screw them in slowly, I thought maybe the hole was going to blow out, the sides were going to crack, but it didn't happen. So I just have to cut them down to the correct length. Now I do it in very small increments, and I do a test fit each time, and then I take another thread off, and then I do another test fit, and then I take another thread off until I get to the point where I think there's going to be no interference joining the base and the body back together. So here we go, let's have a look. Got to close that front end. That looks pretty good to me, although there is some daylight between the base, corner of the base, and the body. So I can admit that there was a lot of swearing and cursing going through this process of trying to fit all these bits together so that they work. And how people, it always amazes me how people who worked for Matchbox did it in the factory at a rapid pace, because these models would have been, I guess, belting along the production line, and you had one job and you had to be good at it. That hole I've drilled in the front, I didn't want to come out through the bonnet. It's quite thin, the model at the front. So what I did was I had to redo it, but I put a small black washer under the head of the screw to take up the slack, just to close the gap a little bit better. Now here I am testing the wing retention system, and what do you know? It worked. But will they deploy? This is the first time ever. Oh, yes! You couldn't wipe the smile off my face even if you wanted to. And now it's time to get these decals on it. This model is done and dusted, and I'm really excited by it now. When I first bought it, like I said, I was desperate to get something. I didn't want to go home empty-handed, and I bought it, and when I got home I thought I might as well just chuck it in the bin. I am so glad I didn't, because this thing is taking shape, and all of a sudden it was worthwhile. And I hope you're enjoying the video as much as I am enjoying putting these decals on as the finishing touch. Tiny little decals, not too many of them. They could have really gone to town with this vehicle and put loads of detail on it using decals, but they just got the number 2000 and this unusual search and rescue or defense force insignia, something to do with the stars and the sea. Even though this is a flying, there you go. It's a flying machine. That must be for the stars. Maybe they had a boat. I don't think they did. An amphibious vehicle? Perhaps. That's the best bit. That's the bit I like. Rolling those decals flat. Now this one here, this was the one that I had to change. I had to reprint this on clear backed paper because I couldn't match the green, and of course it makes perfect sense now. So here's a reminder of what I started with like 2 weeks ago. I must apologise for the delay in getting this video out. I've been very busy, and this was quite a challenge. And this is what it looks like now. Okay, not perfect because the laser guns are missing. And maybe the wings aren't quite the right thickness. Not too sure. But they're functional and it looks pretty cool. And to me, it's one of a kind because it's such an unusual space age, advanced, futuristic looking model that I've got nothing like it. So this is a first for me. And I took a few shots outside in the sun, just a bit traversing some rough terrain. I should have just stuck with the standard and took some photos inside, but I didn't. I hope you get the idea though. And here we go. I'm going to show you another. This is the best bit about this model. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Marty's Matchbox Makeovers. And if you have, remember, please like, subscribe, and recommend to your friends. And so, until next time, this is Marty saying, thanks for watching and goodbye.